Welcome to another interview episode of the Video Game Newsroom Time Machine. We have something a little bit special today. I'm going to be chatting with Joneva Barry. Now, she is a graphic artist, educator, and she was also one of the people who worked on one of the projects that most intrigues me about the early 80s, the Kadabrascope project, which was an attempt by Pizza Time Theater, Chuck E. Cheese, to create a animation film studio using computer-aided tools. Now, what was actually going on there? What were the plans? How did the tech work? A lot of this is shrouded in mystery, and Joneva is going to help us get through a lot of that. Super kind of her to spend as much time as she did talking to me. And unlike a lot of the interviews, this one just sort of started off as a call. We just started talking about it, and the conversation took us where it was going to take us. Wonderful person. So I hope that you enjoy this conversation as much as I enjoyed having it, and looking back at, what was it like at Pizza Time back then, the connections with Sente, and so much more. Enjoy.
I was around 23 when I went to work and was hired by them. And pretty much the entire hired freelance art crew, the animation crew that was working on the computers, we were in our 20s. Now, the animators that we had working were older, and I think some of them were around a lot, and some of them weren't. I can't, So, but Jeff Clemens was he was one of the young animators. So I know there was an older woman that she had to be in her late 60s or her 70s. Doesn't seem so old anymore, but So there was an older woman she was really a good drawing person. So we had the animators doing the main movement, and then we would scan. We had them doing the main drawings that then would be interpolated. So let's say like 15. I can't remember the exact number, but 26 was the frames per second is the basic idea in animation to fool the eye, right, and create motion. So, but the system was designed to do line interpolation. And so we had the animators draw the keyframes. And then the computer would interpolate them. And as I recall, you had to go check because it was still, kind of in an infant stage, so you had to go check stuff. And in order to get the movement. Now, a lot of our stuff was just planning, we had a deadline, and we had, and I did the math. I wouldn't say I'm a great leader, but sometimes I'm a good impetus. I am a person that sees the writing on the wall. And I did the math on how many backgrounds I would have to create and how many frames we would have to create in the animatic. I did the math, and I looked at our timeline, and I started going in and putting in extra hours. I was pretty fascinated by the whole thing. And I do have that memory. I don't know, maybe a little bit of it is my ego, stroking my ego. But because I do remember telling Jennifer, gosh, I wish I could remember her name. She's Jennifer, I want to say Garner, but that's just because that's an actress I knew.
Wait, Jennifer Grey. You mean Jennifer Grey?
Gray. Jennifer Gray. Yes, Jennifer Gray. She is, I hope, still alive. She was right around my age, if not maybe a year younger or older. But she's a really smart person, very smart person. And she was doing. I was kind of officially a background artist, but we all did. We all were learning it all, so that But she was impressed that I had done this like math and said, "Hey, we're not going to make our deadline unless we really push it. Not even for the animatic. I mean, that was just the first step. We were doing some animation and putting it together and using the system, but the goal." The goal, and I really want to talk to you about the dynamic of the group and how it came to be too, with the Nolan Bushnell and all that. But the goal was to get the animatic, to use it to maybe raise money or promote, and then it was going to be a full-blown like cartoon Christmas special with the Chuck E. Cheese characters, So in order to do that, the animatic was really important, and that's as far as we got. I think there might have been some segments of animation in the animatic video. I don't know if did you ever see that?
It actually aired on the Disney Channel sometime in the 90s, but it literally is just the keyframe, not even keyframes really. It's like one image every 3 or 4 seconds with the full audio background. And you can actually see it on YouTube. Somebody has uploaded it to YouTube. So what aired had no animation in it whatsoever.
Slideshow. It was a slideshow.
Yeah.
It was a plan. So that was a big part of our focus, but we were also getting trained. So Nolan Bushnell, and then just a little bit about the kind of the dynamics of the project. From my perspective, with Nolan Bushnell made a lot of money on the video he did. Wasn't it called Dragon Slayer?
Well, he didn't do Dragon Slayer. Dragon Slayer comes out from another company. Because at that point, Bushnell had this non-compete clause because he had originally co-founded Atari, and when he left, he still had a few years on his non-compete. So at almost the same time he's starting the Kadabrascope, he's also starting Sente, which was going to be the video game division, but it also coincides with the launch of Dragon Slayer. But that's a different company out of Florida that's distributing that.
Okay, so I might not have it correct in my head then.
Well, Chuck E. Cheese made a lot of money off of those machines. They didn't make the machines, but they made a ton of money. They were big draws at Chuck E. Cheese's.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that flood of money came his idea to start the computer animation, and it was look where the technology went. It wasn't a bad idea,
Yeah.
But they put it together real quick, and I think the team, for the most part, aside from the girl that, oh my God, this gal that they had hire us and start of us was, I want to say her name was Carmen, but she also was really young, but
Donna Cohen? Donna Cohen, maybe?
Donna Cohen. Have you talked to her?
I did talk to her very, very briefly, but her memories of the system were so fleeting that she really couldn't give me much information about it.
Well, yeah, she didn't really do the work. I mean, I don't want to put her down or anything. She's a little cuckoo, though. She's just a very, she kind of landed in this position of pulling a crew together, and she didn't know a lot about, I mean, I knew enough to fake my way through it. I had been working as an artist, you know, since I was a kid. I wanted to be an illustrator, and then I did drafting. I had all kinds of diverse experience, and I had a portfolio, you know. But I don't know how she landed it, but she was a little over her head. You know, that's, you know, she was a little cuckoo. Bless her heart. Anyway, I can tell you some specific things about the system. We got trained, so, you know, they pulled this crew together, a lot of young people, few older people, and on the corporate side, you know, there were also some fun, nice people. You know, it's funny, in the film and entertainment industries, you know, a lot of people, they come, they go, you know, you have a lot of movement. You know, these are not people that stay in the same jobs for 30 years, you know. So,
yeah.
So, you know, and I have a lot of good memories. I was there with them. I don't even think it was 1 year that the Kadabrascope lasted. But in my mind, it was close to a year. So, and we got trained. So the core team, not really Donna. Yeah, Cohen helps because, you know, and I knew she was Jewish. And that's said with love. But and then this was the guys from MIT came down to train us, you know, and they came down not once, but at least twice and stayed weeks. Wow. And came, you know, I mean, it was expensive shit going on. And, I mean, we had, the computer room was huge. I mean, when we went to boot the system, we went into a separate room that was heavily air conditioned, and there were rows and rows of mainframes, you know, and yeah, you know, so we were working in a separate room next to where the big computer room was. Our monitors were next to them. So, you know, the MIT guys were, I mean, they were great. They were getting paid. A lot of them were pretty young too, you know, but maybe more in their late 20s or early 30s. And, so it was interesting, exciting, and, you know, we got had our animators that were doing the physical drawings, and we would scan them in, and then we would do the interpolation, check the interpolation, learn about all this, and I created shell files. So I had, you know, I'm not bragging about my computer prowess and programming skills, but, you know, I actually do have a decent mind for math, and, you know, those things, so they didn't scare me, you know. So I did learn how to make, you know, clouds float by, layers of background stuff, and write little shell files to make them do different things. So there was some light-hearted, I guess, light-hearted, stupid. There was some programming, or at least writing these simple do this, sequential things. So, and then there was the whole, you had to check the interpolation drawings, and then you had to learn how to tweak. We called it tweeping, I think. Tweeping.
Yeah, there's the tween, and then there's the tweep. So there's two different systems in there.
Right. So the tween is the in-between frames. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and that's what the computers, were supposed to help us do and make the whole process of animation faster and more doable than it had been. And it did, but we were one of those early systems. I mean, they went so far, so fast in the development, right?
Yeah.
And so we were really kind of
guinea pigs.
The gas just went out of the project. It just, it was so expensive. It was so expensive, and the return, this idea of doing this full animated feature with the Chuck E. Cheese characters and everything, it just, there was, if you did the math, you would kill. Well, that's not going to happen. So he ran out of money, and I do remember the several friends I made with the group you're talking about. He had a different group that was doing video game development or something.
Sente.
I did
Sente, yeah.
Sente, right. Because I had, I was 23 years old. I was getting crushes on everyone. That's me, I was falling in love with everyone. They weren't interested in me, but I dated one of these fellows. I would love to actually know whatever happened to him. His name was Bill Maher, so he was part of the Sentai group. But and I did some illustrations to help that. We were like sister, they were associated with us, so we were under the same umbrella. So I did some illustrations for them to help them with their game development and stuff. And so did I worked with some other guy. I'm just remembering his name. There was a guy named Ernie, and he did character development. So I did a background illustration for one of their games, and then we put plastic over it and put his very detailed characters that he had designed on top of it to put them into the scene and stuff.
Gotcha.
So okay, so big computer room. Starter technology, nice techs coming down to MIT, very expensive, had animators, and we were working on doing, getting to the point where we could do an actual animated feature, but it never got there, so it would be nice to think that the work we did resulted in something other than a sad little slideshow of Chuck E. Cheese running around.
Well, it is interesting because the technology after the collapse of Pizza Time does get sold off to another company, and that it ends up as part of Pixar. To be honest with you.
Oh, really?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
They did well.
Yeah. There's something to be said there. Now, I do have a couple of questions about the mechanics here. So, you're line drawing, and then scanning it into the computer, and it's being interpolated on the system, so you now have that wireframe, if you will, the outlines of the characters, if I understood it correctly.
Yeah.
Yeah. And now the shells that you're programming, was it basically so that you could control different layers of scanned elements at the same time,
yes.
Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It was on that. It was layers. Okay?
Gotcha. Okay.
So I had a background, and I wanted clouds flowing. I wanted my background to move a little bit. I wanted clouds to move in the opposite direction or in the same direction, but they were on different layers. And I would write a simple shell file to create the movement of those images. Okay, so a lot of it, of course, they had tried to, like with the tweeping, they had, designed more of a system. So you had to have a contained area, and the lines were, what's the name for it? The lines dissolved into a solid line. They were, so when you filled if you had a hand that was a simple line, and you filled it with yellow, it was going all the way through the.
So it would fill the space, and then
it would fill the space, and the line had softened pixels. I'm trying to remember the technical word for it. So, in other words, so the line would look smooth. It had softened pixels on the outside of the line. Okay?
Gotcha.
Okay, and there's a word for it.
I totally, well, nowadays we would just call it a fill function. But I'm sure that there was a more specific term. And when I look at the artwork that's in the version that aired, that was one of the first things I noticed was all of the black lines always close off a space before. So there's never an open space with the colors sort of just hitting the background. It's always a solid black line around it.
Yeah, that was the system. Okay, at that time, I'm sure things have, gone in leaps and bounds from there.
Well, of course, but I mean, the principle stays the same to this day. I mean, if you have to go in and close any of those spots manually, it's a huge pain in the butt. And the colors are nice and vibrant in this, so it's that really sort of gives away the fact that it was done on a computer. Now, the individual animation frames, so let's say you're moving a character along and the character has to walk, you still have to do all of the walking animation by hand, so it's each frame of the walking animation still has to be drawn by hand and scanned, right?
No, that was the whole point of the tweening. The in between frames. So no, you have a character, and you have him in one with his right leg forward and his left arm forward, and then you do another drawing, and he's got his other leg forward, and his other arm back, and then you interpolate. Okay, so you do, I don't know how many frames it would do, but that was the part of the system to make it simpler to animate, and it would interpolate and create out of two pictures, it would create like 15 drawings. Now you would have to go and check them, and maybe tweak them a little bit, because, of course, you have to check it, But no, the computer did do that. Are you there, Carl?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm fascinated, yeah.
Sometimes I ramble on.
No. Ramble away. Ramble away.
The idea is that you let the other person talk, too. Anyway, but... I can't remember the details. Like I said, I was the background artist, but absolutely, we were. It was an animation system, Yeah. And so, then you had to. So if we successfully animated something, a character walking across the screen, to Santa or whatever it was, we would then have to paint and tweak all those, and that was actually kind of fun and easy. But again, you had to have contained spaces, because that's how you filled the spaces, and they had to be contained. But no, I don't want to say that the system didn't do the in-between frames. It did. That was the whole point.
Interesting.
So it was the whole point was to speed up animation.
Yeah.
So when you see that animatic, I just went onto YouTube to see if I could pull it up. Kadabrascope. I had forgotten about them calling us Kadabrascope. Because I just remember it being, I had already been in the, maybe it was why I got the job. I had already been in the amusement park industry. I had jobs working with amusement parks and characters and animatronics. Okay, so these are the characters at places like Chuck E. Cheese,
Yeah.
I had furred and feathered the tiki birds that went to Disneyland, and I had done a whole bunch of things in my early 20s. Before that might have been one of the reasons, because I had these examples of working with animatronics and some of the characters from Chuck E. Cheese, actually. So there was a whole boon in the 80s of restaurants that wanted, pictures that had eyes that moved and everything. So, that's, I don't know what the connection is, but I can toss that into your coffers. There was stuff going on in the animatronics industry that were also kind of akin and part of that whole technological development back then, So, all right, I've gotten off on a
No.
tangent.
This is excellent. This is excellent. So if I'm going to understand this, you had this experience already with their machines and similar machines. So, I mean, it would definitely be a boon if you're about to make an animated film using those characters, that you have this hands-on experience with those characters already.
Yeah. I mean, like I had, I had painted a model of a character that was then built and instead of a drawing of a character, we actually made one that talked, and I would have been the person that and was the person that dressed them and the character, painted it, and made it look fabulous. And then the mechanic guys would animate it. I mean, I was in, I think before I was up there in Seattle area, Bay Area, doing that, I had been at the only, this is the name of the company, it's funny, the only animated display and design company. That was the name of it, and they called it the only company.
That's awesome.
And one of my mentors, Fred Hope, who is now just a kind of a dedicated painter and stuff. Fred Hope had started that company and kind of gotten on the tailwinds of that and work. And we worked for Knott's Berry Farm. This was one of my first jobs as a young person, But, I got to do all kinds of different things. And it was probably a major reason why Miss Cohen hired me. She didn't know what she was doing anyway, but bless her heart. She was a character. We were all so young. So I just remember at the time going, what the heck? This gal is super high energy. But, she's probably 24 years old when I met her. So anyway, all right, then. Where do we go from here, Carl?
Okay, so, now you've brought in a couple of new tangents, which are interesting. So you were working on these devices. You get hired. Now, did they did you answer an ad in the paper, or was it an internal write-out? How did that work?
I'm trying to remember. I am trying to remember. Huh.
Well, I'm just, because I'm curious, how do you advertise a job like this in 1982 or 1983? We need an animator to do stuff on a computer. Must have been an interesting way of, how do they explain the job to you once you're there?
Well, Donna, you said Donna Cohen, right?
Donna, yeah.
Cohen. She didn't know. she literally, and I'm not, aside from calling her a little kooky, and I'm sure people call me kooky all the time. So, I'm not in any way disparaging the woman. She didn't, I think however she got that job to hire the crew and start, basically be the producer or semi-manager, because Bill, he had his cronies and older men kind of managing us. But however she got that job, I have no idea. And to be honest, I can't remember how I got the interview. It's like before computers, how did we do that stuff? This is before cell phones. This is before computers. So I might have answered an ad in the paper. It's the only thing I can think of. Or, I wasn't super well connected because I had kind of gotten out of L.A. and design school and gone up to live near my sister Catherine in Palo Alto, California. So it's not like, oh, yeah, we have this young hot gal. She knows a little bit about animation. She might be able to help. It wasn't like word of mouth. Gotcha. So it had to be the paper. They had to just put an ad in the paper. And, and I was definitely looking for work, and it was exciting. It was fun. A few rocky things happened, but, I was in my 20s.
We all do funny things when we're in our 20s. That's just the nature of that beast.
Yes, very funny. Right. Hopefully no lives were lost. Anyway. So it had to be a paper. My sister Catherine was getting her PhD from Stanford. She's really smart. This woman got a PhD from Stanford and was in at the base. That was another thing that was going on. Catherine was in with the whole Mac thing going on up there, and it was right in Silicon Valley. And so she got one, and she got the first Mac that they ever had produced for the public. So, it's kind of interesting to think of the general, brain stew that was going on, It was, because those guys were developing it, and I remember her taking me out. It's because she wanted to show me an early graphic arts system that was developed by the Mac guys, and I don't think it was at one of their house. Anyway, I went and I sat and I played around with one of these systems that was an early, some kind of early Mac, maybe a coloring tool or something, or some kind of art tool. So they were already going on stuff like that, and super early on. And these PCs they're just beginning to get developed in that early 80s era.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, it's very, very early, for this stuff. And this is why the whole idea of the layers, but especially the interpolation, is, I guess that's the magic sauce that I'm still struggling in understanding how the computer would know, what the transition from one arm being in one position to another looks like if it's just working off of the art, off of the line art. And
I don't know. Yeah. I mean, maybe I'm reaching here because I wasn't, like I said, that was the background artist, but I think they had for as part of the process, I think they had a beginning and a start point for lines, and so if you have a beginning and start point for every line, and the lines do connect, but they also have beginning and start points, and then and imagine doing the math, like, okay, so the arm is the character is 4 inches, his arm's been raised 4 inches from one drawing to the other, and those and then you do the interpolation, and it comes up and creates new frames, that would step it. So I mean, it has some mathematical methodology to do
definitely,
it.
Definitely, yeah. Well,
so Cummins. Now, if you contact Jeff Cummins, he's a few years younger than me. I think he's retired as an artist. Really nice guy. I had a crush on him too. So it was a difficult time. It was a very difficult time. Yeah, he's funny. He contacted me like just a couple of years ago, and said, "Do you remember me?" And I was like, "Yeah, you're that guy I had a crush on." Anyway, we had a good laugh. He's a very nice man. Now he would know about he would know a little bit more about the interpolation than I do.
Gotcha.
And an interesting and nice guy. Probably wouldn't mind talking to you at all. So
he's also an artist, right? Or was he more on the technical side?
Yeah, he's a very good artist. So
okay.
Yeah, but he was on the crew as a young animator, as a cartoonist, So he was doing the character work, and he really kind of was fascinated and appreciated the older gal that I don't remember her name, but she was a very well known animator and a character person. They knew how to draw characters. I mean, I used to think to myself, several things in my path in life, I've gone, no one will ever be able to completely animate anything on a computer. I mean, you need paper and you need the human equation. Nobody's going to make that. A computer isn't going to make that surprise look or that passionate gesture or anything. Well, and that's true, but you can do it all on computers now. You can draw on the computer. You can do it all on computer. And the other thing I was wrong about is that I thought they'll never replace film. No, never. I used to see. I've taught photography. I've done black and white photography and developed things in color photography. It's like, I know film. You're not going to replace film with video and digital imagery. My God, how stupid! So I was wrong about that. So I'm a little more careful now about the things that I go, that'll never happen. So yeah.
The developments are beyond our comprehension at this point, and you never know when it's going to take off again or move in a different direction. I've stopped trying to figure out where the limits are.
Yeah.
You guys are, so you're doing some of the shell stuff. You're also doing painting the backgrounds. You've got a team of animators working on stuff, creating the keyframes. You're filling in the colors, and now I gotta ask about the corporate culture. You've mentioned already. You've got contact with the people over at Sente, and so on and so forth. And by the way, I just looked up Bill Maher. Not to be confused with the not to be confused with the comedian, but yeah.
No, I know. He was a big guy. He had a weight problem.
Yeah,
but really funny guy. Oh my God.
He was still involved in the video game business at least until 1994.
Character though that knows a lot about the system, and that's Jamie, and I can't remember his last name, but he was he ended up going back to LA. I ended up going back to LA, and we ran into each other down there working on some projects together, which was kind of interesting. So we were out of the animation. We weren't doing animation, but we did run into each other. I had a lot in my career of, and I do want to talk a little bit about the culture, because it was still, you got passed over for guys, as a woman working in anything. But I experienced that, and particularly in the film industry later on. But Jamie, I always remember his attitude was quite cocky and cavalier about all that stuff. So you're lost. You're female, so just deal with it. But are you there, Carl?
I'm here. I'm listening, and I'm waiting to. I'm seeing where you're going to go with this. So, when you say passed over, I mean, so, and I guess I should preface this.
It was a man's world, okay? The guys and the chauvinism and the sexism and the really inappropriate fucking behavior was rocking the day. I mean, I got asked to come forcibly, to this luncheon, and I remember Liz was with me, Gray. She was there, and we get there, and the old cronies. These guys are in their late 30s or 40s at the time. And one of them for sure was gay, which I could fucking care less about. As a liberal and an educator, it's like, I don't care about that crap at all. Unless I need to help somebody that has, needs to be understood and all that. The kids and their whole gender issues and everything, it doesn't matter one whit. Anyway, it's like a sex worker jumped out of a cake naked. You had young women and women there that had no idea what was going on. It is just, it's just like this good old boy. Yeah, let's go. Let's go get to see the stripper and everything. And you kind of I felt ambushed. I'm like, why am I here? You guys want to do this shit? Okay, I don't give a rat's ass, but why did you have to make a point of me and one of my female friends from the team, bearing witness to this? It was gross. It was just kind of gross and what are you thinking? But they weren't thinking, and that was the era too. I mean, people are more conscious of sexism and just shit like that. I mean, talk about sexual harassment suit. Hello.
Oh, hell yeah. I mean,
So, and for the most part, they would breeze in. I mean, I wish I could remember his name. He was he was kind of like a producer, and he was a funny guy. A lot of them were really funny. But, you know, he would swirl in and check on us and swirl out. He wouldn't do it either. He didn't know how the machines worked. He didn't know the system, you know. They were managers that they weren't going to get their hands dirty, you know. They were just in, you know, to try and steer us into hopefully making the company some money and doing some good art, I guess. But yeah. So it was a mixed batch. I mean, some of them were you know. Yeah, I don't want to badmouth anything, but I did want to share that as an example of the culture. You know, there you are. You know, let's invite these two gals that are, you know, to this. Why? You know.
Well, was Nolan Bushnell present for that one?
If he was, I think I only met Nolan Bushnell twice or something. I don't think he was even there. No, I don't think he was there.
Oh, jeez.
Or, you know, or maybe he financed it. I don't know. No, I really don't remember. So that's the honest answer there.
Yeah, no. Well, I mean, you may not be aware of it, but when he was at Atari, the previous company, they were quite notorious. I mean, there was a hot tub on site, and they'd have business meetings in the hot tub, and all sorts of stuff like that.
Hubba ding ding, hubba come into my little come into my trailer. Gross. Okay. Yeah. I saw a lot of that in the film industry too. You know, it's one
I was about to say you went from there to the movie business. That could not have been a great upgrade.
No. I mean, I worked on special effects before basically CGI began to just take everything. You know, I mean, there were better ways to do things. There were better ways. There was green screen. There was all these burgeoning CGI things that were going on, and you know, but yeah, I saw. I mean, I worked with Sylvester Stallone on the Rambo movies. At Intravision was the big company I worked for.
Well, and I guess we got to take a step back. So. To just close out the time at Pizza Time, are you there until the bitter end when they close down the project? Do you leave before then?
You know, as I recall, it happened really fast. Like we were just notified. You guys got a couple of weeks. You know. I remember just it was depressing. It was like, because we had started something and it's like there's no way we can finish it, you know. And we were, you know, we at least sort of got the animatic done or some semblance of it, you know. Piece of crap if you ask me, but although the backgrounds are pretty nice.
Oh yeah, they're very pretty. They are very well painted.
So, you know, but what was that last point?
Well, the question is, so you get the notice that you guys got to get out, and I guess that answers my question. I mean, because the company itself goes into bankruptcy.
Yeah, I mean, we were all kaput. I mean, it was. I don't even know if it was a 2-week notice, but there was no funding to continue, and you know, so we had to sew things up and get ready to go on with our lives, you know. And I remember being really depressed, you know. It's like, and it's one of the few times in my life, and not that I'm any saint or anything, but I sought out marijuana. Not, you know, I like wanted to get stoned because I knew it would help me not feel so bad.
Yeah.
And you know what? That worked. It worked. I went, scored myself some pot, and I had a joint. So, yeah.
Chuck E. Cheese implodes. And
pretty much, yeah.
Yeah, and you were.
It was kind of bummer.
Yeah,
It was a bummer.
yeah, I can imagine. And so you talked about going back and forth for a little bit, but how did you get into film production then?
Well, I just, I had jumped around a lot already in my young life, and I had done drafting. I had wanted to be an illustrator at the start of it as a teen, and I was drawing and painting since I was 6. I mean, I had a brother-in-law who was a successful movie poster illustrator, and he influenced me a lot. So I was very serious and directed about being in the arts. But I went from this thing to that thing. I didn't stick at Art Center and finish my degree. Off I went to the Bay Area, and I ended up doing a bunch of things up there and going to JC. So that was Joneva in her mad quest to find some fruitful artistic things to do, right? And I did stage design up at JC up in the Bay Area, and then at some point then the Chuck E. Cheese job came along, Kadabrascope. I hardly ever remember saying it. I mean, I recognized it when you said that, but yeah, I don't think we really identified with the Kadabrascope name much. We always were like, as we're working on this pilot project for Chuck E. Cheese guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, then when it fell through, I had all these diverse interests, in fine art and illustration and animation, and I thought I saw the movie The Big Chill, and I was so impressed with the opening sequence of The Big Chill. And I'm like, that is something that would totally satisfy my diverse interests, is to be a production designer. That's who came up with the idea of it, the way they introduced the characters. They were all unpacking on this stage to celebrate the life of a friend who had passed away early. You've seen the movie, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. So, yeah, and so that was my impetus. Not to belabor it, but then off I went back to LA, and there was much more opportunity in LA for a young artist, because the film industry and the entertainment industries were all centered down there, pretty much still are. But back then, things weren't so globally happening. There wasn't so many choices so far as where you could do production work and TV and all that type of stuff. It was really centered down in the LA area, and there was lots of work. But I went back to film school. I managed to get the money together. I sold a piece of property or royalty I had or something. I got enough money for a couple of more terms at Art Center College of Design, which is it's a very, I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's a high-end private design college.
Nice. And
believe me, it's got its problems. But I mean, like, really wealthy Japanese kids go there, and the tuition was raised the second term, I think the second semester, and because I had joined the film department. So I met a bunch of other young people that were interested in making films, and I learned a lot about lighting and sound, and was taking general courses as well. So I did that for 2 semesters, and they raised the tuition. It was over $800. I think it was like $1,000 a term. They raised the tuition, which
wow.
I was just like, I mean, it was a really big raise, and I was just like, shit, I can't afford to do this. So, well, I put a portfolio together, which is mostly sketches and idea sketches, stuff I had done at Kadabrascope, and drafting samples, and just, I have a lot of quick sketch ability. I could have been a courtroom reporter sketch artist. I could have done that type of thing. But I did. So that's how I got my job, mostly and firstly at Introvision, which was an in-camera composite system. Okay, so I'm trying not to belabor certain things because I've done so much. But very quickly, it was the in-camera composite system made it possible to have actors and actresses on stage doing a dangerous setup, or with very detailed high-end models. But you would separate the actors and a few props and stage pieces, and then you would create a mat, like a window. Meanwhile, you had these stills, usually from models that were built, and different, maybe a live scene from Niagara Falls or something. I mean, so these high-end photographs or images or film on the side. So the director could look into the camera after we got it all tweaked and set up, which was my job, as well as painting models and doing all sorts of artistic things, sketching out special effects scenarios, but the director could look in and he could see Sylvester Stallone in all his irritating glory. He could see him do something really dangerous, and he was on a fake rock, and he was around 3 feet from a pad, which he would, then fall onto or leap or whatever they did, whatever dangerous stunt it was.
Gotcha.
So, and it was just, the matte painting was one thing. That it was just a kind of a tedious, stick to it process. I was assistant art director with Tim Donahue, who unfortunately has passed away, and I loved him. I mean, he was a kind man. He had been an art teacher, and he was really a dear friend and mentor to me for many years. I worked with him at Introvision, and he's told me several times hardly anyone else could learn the system. It was just one of those things, the creating the mats. I mean, we're not talking matte paintings. Ooh, cool, you're doing a picture of a crazy building on, or something, and then using that as background. So it was separating. It was creating a window and mesh these two different image areas together. Did you follow that?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, in camera special effects. So, but I mean, and the precision of all of that. I mean, were you guys using any kind? Were you doing everything without camera motion, or were you doing any kind of effects that would have also done camera tracking at that point?
Oh, I think we were doing camera tracking. I mean, we built some of these models we built were, they were big models. They were not little models. They were 1-inch scale. Sometimes, they were big because they would then be photographed. And even like the movie where I decided to get out of the film industry was called 976 Evil. I mean, you can, I worked on some really bad special effects films in that career and at Introvision and other places too where I was doing set. I worked on some real cheesy, worthless movies. I told myself afterwards if I had it to do over again, I would companies. I would really like. I would have tried to get in with Lucas, or I would have tried to get in. I would have really looked at what good people were doing in the industry. But you're out there and you need work. You need to pay the rent. So,
well, of course.
Then
yeah.
I made some bad choices too, which could have launched my career in a really good direction. So, but these things happen.
Yeah.
I think I understand what you mean. I remember the photographers and cinematographers that I worked with, doing moves on the big models. What I'm struggling to figure out is when at the in-camera composite system, if the side camera was ever moving, and I mean we did lots of effects with movement and filming the models and everything. I mean, there was fire in 976 Evil, so the earth opened up on this large house set, and fire comes blazing out of a crack in the earth. I mean, that wasn't going to be used for the in-camera composite system, or maybe it was at some point, but it would have to be, I'm pretty sure it'd have to be a still. Anyway, but so there was other things. Does that help at all? I'm kind of not the camera expert. I know the guy, though, and I'm Facebook friends with several of them that would know a lot more about it. So if you want to dive into that, I could give you the name of the cinematographer.
Oh,
really
I can't get into any more. If
Yeah.
I go into any more stuff like that, I'll go crazy.
Yeah, you want to keep on track with your main concept, which is how things affected in the development of the gaming industry. As I understand, that's your focus, right?
Well, that's my main focus, but I am interested to see where the tangents are sometimes. And I was really just curious because, I mean, I know a little bit about the special effects industry. Like I said, I used to work in the movie business. So that's why I was just wondering if you guys were also doing any of the early motion tracking stuff, because that would have required then computer-controlled camera movement. And that was starting around that time, but it was still in its infancy. That's why I wasn't quite sure. But when you told me 976 Evil,
I don't. I'm not. I wasn't doing it, so but I do believe, and particularly in the end, in the early '90s, when I was transitioning out, I remember them bringing in some specialists at Intravision and there were computers involved in everything. So,
Gotcha.
So they were doing it. The thing about Intravision is a tyrant owned it, named, what was the guy's name? Fortunately, I've forgotten it. It'll probably come to me. But he was. I mean, he could have been Donald Trump's, doppelganger. The guy was, and personality to boot. He just thought that his in-camera composite system, which is something he just kind of lucked into. I mean, this guy, he got on the coattails of a decent system, but that was his attitude. This was it. This is special effects. Nothing's going to beat this. And talk about ignorance, And so, I mean, he got out and was able to retire before, he probably lost everything. But he wouldn't do green screen and blue screen. He wouldn't offer it because he thought he wanted to do everything. I mean, here we were trying to figure out how to do a special effects sequence. The artists and designers, and set builders and all, and model makers and all this stuff, and he didn't want us to come up with any ideas that weren't the camera system, or just filming models. And so that was a little weird. It's like, if it works, it works. This is like, don't deny it. Don't be in denial. Anyway, so as you could see, that company didn't have much of a future because of this character. And after many years of working with Introvision, and I also did a lot of set work. If I wasn't with them, I was quite often doing set painting. It was so flexible as I went, particularly when I went back to college. When I was 29, I was working on 976 Evil. And I just, some of the days we had, I had 16-hour days and more sometimes on set. And, it was a great time in my life. There was a lot of adventuring, and it was very interesting. But I'm like, is this it, Joneva? Are you gonna make these bad science fiction movies? Is it? And I was seeing young men pass me up, get promoted into art directing positions that I wasn't getting, and some of it was just my personality. I'm just I don't know. I'm not a good schmoozer, I don't think. I'm not. I'm not good on the schmooze factor, and the schmooze factor is very present in the entertainment industry. And I sometimes say things that people don't like and everything. I'm a very kind person, but I am kind of the person that would point out the elephant in the room. So. Gotcha. That got me in trouble teaching too. Anyway, oh well, fuck 'em if they can't take a joke. So just to segue then, I decided when I was 29, I was just like, you just got to go back to college, get serious about getting your degree and your credential, and I had to sell some stock in to afford to concentrate on getting all that started. I went to Cal State University of Northridge, and in around I did got my bachelor's degree in general education, and I got my teaching credential. Took me a little less than I already had a lot of credits from all over. But it took me a little less than 3 years, I think, to get that accomplished. And and so then I married, and I went up and taught at Antelope Valley High School. It's my first assignment, and I taught there for around 10 years before I went on to my next adventure, which is I had a windfall. And I was, I really decided I wanted to do something more meaningful with my life, Yeah. So you're also a teacher, right?
Yeah. I teach at a university over here.
Oh, that must be interesting.
Oh, it is. It's a fascinating gig.
Well, I wanted to get my master's because I also was considering, I kept up with my life drawing and my painting somewhat. On my own, and then of course teaching art, you do all kinds of different things, and I did pottery and darkroom photography I taught, and silk screening. So I mean, add to my list of practical art skills, it's like I've never met anyone who has done as big a variety of stuff that I've had to teach and do. It's like, okay, teach silk screening. All right, I had to go and get a special certificate because I was in industrial technology and not teaching general art. So I had more training. Anyway, that went on I was there for 10 years, but I got a windfall of cash from, it's a long story. It was part of a royalties suit. It was a sizable amount of money. It was over $80,000. And so I was ready to end that marriage after 11 years, and I was ready to go get my master's degree and was thinking about doing something different. And actually, I wanted to become a studio painter. It's easier to become a rock star than a studio successful studio painter, okay?
Really?
You could become a studio painter, but if you're ever going to sell anything, might be a little bit easier these days because of all the options on the internet and stuff.
Yeah, it's a tough gig. It's a very tough gig. I mean, you almost have to become a commercial artist nowadays, and then try to backdoor into it.
Yeah. I spent 4 hours yesterday looking at videos and interviews and podcasts on artificial intelligence. Now, there's a topic. And that's some scary stuff. But the artistic stuff, too, I'm just like, holy God, I got to make my peace with this. Have you checked it out?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I've used quite a bit of it over the last year. And for me, it's a big relevance because the AI software for translations is basically forcing me to redefine what I do as a language teacher, because the base idea of just translating a text is already pretty much taken care of. There's the occasional contextual bit that's missing, but for the most part, translation is a done deal. So there's trying to redefine why a person should learn a second language is our new task. And it has to go beyond just the language, but culture and figuring out how to phrase things, not just on a sentence level, but as a complete communication level. Well, on a human being level, but also just because of differences in grammar structures, you completely change the flow of information in a text. So you're going to deliver bits and pieces of the information at different points depending on the rules of grammar of the language.
Okay.
It's a really weird phenomenon. Once you start getting into multiple languages, it starts popping up more and more that you're not, for example, German has a very, very different grammatical structure. What you end up doing is you start building the sentence, and unlike English where you have the SPO structure, the subject predicate object structure, that is always completed and then you go to the next one, then you go to the next one. German intersperses them all with one another because it does this weird thing where it separates the auxiliary verb from the main verb. I'm going off on a tangent here. But what ends up happening is that you have a lot more simplified sentences, and the language itself then becomes extremely context sensitive. So sentences that we in English would be like, well, you've got to clarify who you're talking about here. You can't just say, let's say, Peter plays with Tom and Bill in the park. His ball is round. So his ball, it could be Peter, but it could be Tom. It could be any of the three boys that were mentioned. In German, that's just a simplified example, but when you get even more complex in the text, this becomes a major problem in English. And in English, then you would just basically repeat the person that you're talking about, or you would completely redefine the sentences. You'd go back and be like, now I should say, Peter, whose ball is round, plays in the park with Bill and Ted.
I see.
Yeah, and in German, you just wouldn't. You would just keep going, and the context is going to be your solution. What this does then is it completely changes your body language. It completely changes. So little cues, nonverbal communications that we assume are universal suddenly cease being universal. And the one example that I always use is, for example, if you're doing something theatrical or acting in the English language, if you want to do a shorthand, this character is smart and this character is dumb, the character who's smart, when asked a question, will immediately pause for a second before giving an answer. And the character who's stupid is immediately going to start talking.
Right.
That is reversed in German. In German, you're expected to immediately start talking, even if you don't really know what you're going to say yet, because the listener is expected to read out of the context what the answer is. So immediately that nonverbal shorthand gets turned on its head because of the grammatical structures. And so this is why Americans, for example, find Germans very abrupt, very easy to anger and so forth. It's because they're waiting for completely different social and nonverbal cues that aren't coming.
Right.
And it's all originates from the grammar structure. So, sorry, I've gone off on a tangent here with that.
No, I appreciate that. I know. These things, you know.
Yeah, well, and that's... Sorry.
I'm telling you, the AI is now writing its own code. And, you know, it gets... I put a link on my Facebook page to a 2-hour interview with and one of the men being interviewed is a guy under Jeffries at Google that got out to write books and do some other stuff. And this boy, it I don't want to say it's scary, but it's like the guy. It's going to change our world in ways we haven't seen. You know, it is. It's good that you're keeping on top of it and using it, and understanding the implications in your career. Anyway, so it's good, and I find myself, and I'm getting close to the end of really my tale in my life's journey, but I find myself now retired and living off a very small income in a motorhome and going, you know, wanting perhaps to get some work as an illustrator, a cartoonist, something, use my art skills, you know.
Yeah.
And the options available through AI, they're pretty impressive. And, you know, so it just how the artist is going to continue to be crucial in creative expression and be able to get reimbursed for it. Like, that's going to change quite a bit too, you know. So I am keeping my mind on that, my eye on that as I move forward. It's interesting and kind of it lights my dystopian fears up big time. But anyway,
rightfully so, I believe.
I do. I mean, the only thing I mean, this guy on this interview that I saw, he talked about the fact that the machines are rapidly becoming way smarter than the human brain can ever be. Okay, and they are solving problems. They saw Bard at Google learned a language like Persian or something. They didn't program it. It just did it.
Yeah.
Stuff like that's happening because, you know, they've gotten these problem solving aspects. They don't eat. They don't worry. They don't, you know. But my philosophical question is, okay, so the machines get, the computers get, artificial intelligence gets, you know, 1,000 times smart than the smartest person that ever lived, you know. But what is their impetus or drive or motivation in this? You can even call them a life form if you want to. what is their motivation for what they end up doing? I mean, this guy was talking about them becoming powerful over mankind, because calling the shots, stuff like that. So I'm just like, okay, so maybe they are becoming more intelligent than we've ever framed it before, but what are they motivated? What would they be motivated by, So I don't know. It creeps me out and excites me at the same time.
Well, I mean, that is, of course, the giant question. I mean, just because the AI can do stuff doesn't mean that it's going to do anything on its own. And that is where that is where the human players in this go on, because the motivation to do stuff has nothing to do with intelligence. Even the dumbest creature on the planet still does stuff and has motives, if you will, for doing stuff. It's not going to be necessarily complex, even if it's just, instinctual drive to survive.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah,
it.
Will artificial intelligence develop those very human and natural mindsets that make us,
because
I hope not.
Well, the deal
that's
is
kind of like the Terminator,
Well, and this is where we cannot divorce our biology from our intelligence, because our motivations, and this gets very Freudian, but our motivations to do things are very much a result of our biology, be it sex drive, be it hunger, be it whatever. But we have that entire biological setup that requires a certain amount of maintenance, that creates desires and needs that is simply not present in the machine. Now, if you built a machine that had needs, that could feel something, then you might get to that point.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Well, good to hear your perspective on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's put it this way. I'm not horribly worried about the machines coming for us just yet, especially because, as someone who's spent a tremendous amount of time so far with AI programs, I know what the limitation is. There is no consciousness there. It's really just what they call a large language model. And it's just, it can process so many options simultaneously that it looks real. Have you ever done any computer programming?
Many years ago, I said, I was shell files and
exactly.
But I just learned enough about HTML to know I wasn't going to be good at that. So no, I haven't, but I know enough about it to. Get myself in trouble.
I hear you. Well, and this is the thing that I didn't do much programming either, but I did enough to figure out that ultimately, if you really break it down to it, everything that a computer does is just a series of if-then calculations. If this happens, then do this. If this happens, then do that. Now, if you do billions of those a second, what the end result that you see on the screen looks like it couldn't have come from that. It had to be more complicated than that. It's the argument many religious scholars try to use to explain, the world is too complex to not have been created by an intelligent life. be that argument where it may be, but ultimately all it is just billions and billions of simple little decisions that add up to one big whole. And
Right.
and that's all it's doing. I mean, when you put in, go into one of these AI art tools and you type in, for example, my wife had this idea to do one little wall in our dining room that was going to be pictures, fantasy pictures of eating. So we have a very dapper looking 18th century dragon sitting there with a cigarette in his mouth, and he's drinking a cup of coffee. And it
Nice.
was, yeah, and it, and all I did was a well-dressed dragon drinking coffee, and I think I put in 19th century still lifestyle. And it created this beautiful image, just popped it out in seconds. And, I did a bunch of those. I've got one of a unicorn in a top hat eating ice cream and stuff like this. It's just insane nonsense.
Right.
But it's all.
He'll put those images together for you.
Well, but that's the thing. All it's doing is it's using existing artwork, looking at billions of options to recognize patterns, and then popping out something quote unquote new, but derivative of everything that came before. It's doing what every human artist does, just doing it infinitely faster.
Well, and it's also, dare I say, it is not coming up with the original idea. Okay.
And because it does have a motivation.
Is not inspired. It's not inspired.
Exactly.
I don't.
Well, it's not inspired because it doesn't have any needs. I mean, I went and put the command in because I had a need. My need was to make my wife happy because that gives me a chemical plus. When she's happy, I feel happy. And if I create this thing for her, I know she's going to have a positive effect around it and so forth. So this is where the...
You will make me delicious food.
Exactly. Well, but that's the thing. If you're never hungry, then you can't have that reaction. All inspiration, or what is it? What's the phrase? Necessity is the mother of all invention.
Yeah,
and if you don't have any necessities, then you can't have any motivations.
Yeah.
Sadly.
Yeah.
But yeah. Okay, I do have to get going. It's midnight over here. So, but yes. One last.
I could wrap up the rest of my life in 5 minutes.
Go for it.
Or we
go
could
for
talk
it.
again.
No, go for it. Go for it. Wrap it up.
Okay. Well, it's just when I got up to Washington, I decided to get my master's degree, but it was not as an artist in studio painting. I got rejected because I was too much of a generalist and a bunch of ageist reasons. And then I went and I decided to go to Antioch University, and I went through a program called the C3 Creative 3, and it was mixed. It was a really good experience, but it reignited. It was a social justice program, and it reignited my excitement about teaching. And I got a job at a Renaissance Alternative High, and it was the best teaching experience of my life. It was a small alternative high school in Bremerton, Washington, and I was just a great fit, and worked with really difficult kids and loved it, And then me and my big mouth, I pissed off some people because we had kind of a lame, she was awful, principal, and I was a little vocal about it. Anyway, they got me switched right for COVID to the middle school. And high school is always my age group. And middle schoolers don't get my jokes. So and they're mean. They're like the meanest creatures on the planet Earth. Well, if AI gets aggressive with us, we'll just sick the middle schoolers on them. Anyway, so that health problems, another divorce, and a whole bunch of other things happened to precede me getting into an RV and doing the traveling I've done this past year. But, I did have 11 years at Renaissance that I would like to write a book about. I mean, these kids, we save lives there regularly. Not that other teachers at regular schools don't save lives, but we really, because we were so small and we got to really nurture those relationships. I mean, I had a 15 student cap, and if 10 of them showed up because these kids were really, needing help and had problems, if 10 showed up, you were like, oh, good, I got a full class today, So yeah, and art was a very important subject. I mean, every day I would have one of those kids tell me the only reason they came to school was because of their project, so it was very, very rewarding. I'm really grateful for my last stint. My first stint as a teacher in LA was good too, but it got way better my last years. Okay, well that's it. Joneva's life in a nutshell. If you come up with any other questions or just let me know.
I wanted to ask. I mean, given that you were doing you were educating in a time when computer art was growing, was that something that, and I mean, you had experience with it. Was it something that you tried to push for in your educational career to get the kids familiarized with computer artwork? Was it something that was being pushed as part of the curriculum? I mean, did it manifest in any way?
Oh, yes. Well, and I could explain a lot by just explaining to you the CTE system, Certified Technical Educator. And they call them different. Pretty much every state's got some kind of program. They get Perkins funds, which was a lot of money from a really rich donor. You might recognize the name. But so there's this huge trust fund for programs. And they basically saved the arts from demise in the public educational school systems because like in California, I'm pretty sure it was called ROP, and I don't remember what the acronym, what it stands for, but Certified Technical Educator. So if you were a woodshop teacher, or you were a general art teacher or whatever, they wanted you in that program because they rationalized the expenses and the training and the extra funds for these art-related type of careers and everything. That's how they rationalized it. Is that we were teaching the kids valuable skills. And so I have been thrown into teaching Photoshop, and I have produced 12 or 15 yearbooks. The last ones I did completely on the computer, digitally, with the new systems and book publishing and everything, which that's a whole interesting field too. But, I was thrust into working with computers and teaching computers and that type of integrated technology pretty much from the beginning. Even at Antelope Valley, my first teaching gig, I was a tech teacher, so we used it minimally at the time because computers were still just being used like graphic tools, but we used it for the yearbook there, and I taught computer graphics on it to some limited extent. I mean, it was weird because, one of my labs was a manual type. And they were still teaching it at AV when I started there in '93, Antelope Valley High School. They were still teaching movable type. You know, Benjamin Franklin type of movable type, like. So, and then I had a little computer. Then I had a little computer lab. So, yeah, that was you know, politics and stuff. They held on to it. But yeah, when I left, I think that all got shut. No, it did get shut down. I remember giving a guy a bunch of the lead type for ballast for his sailboat. Anyway, but yeah, I hope that answers that question. I mean, my last assignments were also doing, you know, teaching Adobe Illustrator, Photoshop, and the graphics to kids too. And you would think that they would really love it, but it's hard to get middle schoolers to do much of anything except, you know, think about their gonads. They're good at that. So, not my age group.
No,
Okay,
I'll believe it.
I'm gonna let you go. I kept you on 15 minutes longer.
No. That was cool. That was good. That was, I mean, yeah, fortunately, I've never had to teach that age group. I get them a little bit older. But yeah, that's can't be easy. Let's put it that way. So,
so yeah. Well, let me know if anything happens, of course, with the material. I'd like to send you some links.
Please,
to
yes,
some albums
please.
that I have, just so you can look at.
And
some
I can
of the
also
artwork.
add the links to the show notes.
Okay.
So, definitely.
So all right, and yeah. Okay.
This has been
Thanks,
a real
Carl.
pleasure. Thank you so much.
Yeah. It was nice. I've been picking myself out of kind of a boohoo depression, and it kind of helped talking to you, thinking, you know, I've done some valuable things in my life. All right.
Yes,
All
yes,
right.
you have. Okay, well, hey, have a good evening or good afternoon for you, and yes, I'll definitely let you know what I end up doing with the material, and send me those links because I definitely do want to see those.
Okay, they're really silly. Okay.
Oh, silly
hey,
is good. I love silly.
Sleep deep. Okay. Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.
I hope you've enjoyed another Video Game Newsroom Time Machine interview. You can leave us comments on Twitter, Instagram, and if you like what we're doing here, drop us a couple of bucks on Patreon. All the links are in the description below.